In the beginning, there was no man. No, not even a hint of humanity. The earth was a vast, empty space, waiting for the spark of life to ignite. In a small clearing, something stirred. A creature, unlike any other, emerged from the shadows. Meet Sahelanthropus tchadensis, our earliest known ancestor, living around 7 million years ago. Not quite human, not quite ape, Sahelanthropus moved low to the ground, relying on all fours to navigate an uncertain world. They were not alone. Small groups formed, not by choice, but by necessity. Together, they searched the land for food, guided by instinct rather than thought. Fruits and leaves became daily meals, simple nourishment for a simple life. Sometimes, the forest floor offered more. Tiny insects hiding beneath leaves, easy to miss, but valuable. They moved as one, staying close, understanding that survival was safer together than alone. When the moment allowed, they rested, never fully relaxed, always listening. Every sound mattered. Every rustle could mean danger. Awareness was their greatest defense. As the light was fading, they returned to cover, trusting the forest more than the open ground. The landscape was changing in subtle ways, quietly rewarding those who could see farther and move more efficiently across the ground. From this environment emerged Orrorin tugenensis, a new kind of early human shaped equally by forests behind them and open land ahead. They stood upright more often now, not with confidence, but with a growing sense that standing had its advantages. Walking was no longer just an occasional accident. It was becoming a deliberate and useful way to move through the world. Their brains remained small, but their awareness was expanding, tuned closely to sounds, movement, and opportunity. Food gathering became more intentional, guided by experience and memory rather than simple trial and error. Trees still mattered, offering safety, food, and escape when the ground below became uncertain. Yet the open land was no longer avoided, slowly becoming familiar through repeated movement and observation. Danger remained everywhere, and survival depended less on strength and more on noticing change before it arrived. Groups stayed close together, not out of social bonding, but because isolation carried immediate risks. And without realizing it, their bodies were already shaping the path that future humans would follow. By now, standing had stopped being a surprise, even though it still required a moment of concentration and a willingness to wobble occasionally. Orrorin's descendants still remembered the trees, But the ground was no longer treated as a temporary inconvenience that had to be crossed quickly. They moved across open spaces slowly and carefully, learning where to place their weight and when to pause, sometimes succeeding, sometimes not. The landscape helped by refusing to choose sides, offering both trees for safety and open ground that quietly encouraged exploration. This was the world of Ardipithecus ramidus, a place that demanded flexibility rather than commitment to a single way of life. They were lightly built and quietly observant, increasingly comfortable on two legs, though still prepared to abandon the idea when necessary. Their feet told a complicated story, balancing the need to grip branches with the growing demand to support upright walking. In the trees, they moved with familiarity, climbing not out of preference, but because it remained a reliable solution. On the ground, they began to trust their balance more, walking upright across short distances without immediately retreating to cover. Food was gathered patiently and without ambition, taken from what the environment offered, rather than what it could be forced to provide. Social life stayed simple, with small groups remaining close because distance made problems arrive faster. Predators still existed, as they always had, ensuring that every moment of calm remained temporary. Walking upright freed their hands, not for tools or planning, but for balance, carrying, and small adjustments to a changing world. They were not thinking about progress or direction, only about getting through the day with enough success to try again tomorrow. And without realizing it, their bodies were quietly forming habits that evolution would refuse to abandon. By now, the land is no longer empty. It stretches wide and patient, a stage prepared for a creature still figuring out what it is meant to become. And here she is, Lucy, or someone very much like her, small, determined, and standing upright as if she has somewhere important to be. She walks on two legs now, not perfectly, not gracefully, but well enough to prove that she is evolving. Every few steps, she pauses, listening, watching, because standing tall is impressive, but staying alive is still the priority. Trees remain trusted allies, not homes anymore, but reliable escape routes when the ground becomes unfriendly. She is not alone. Others follow, moving together, learning that survival improves when it becomes a shared effort. Food no longer simply waits on branches. Now it must be uncovered, pulled from the earth with patience and persistence. Stones, once just part of the scenery, are now recruited into service, helping crack open meals that hands alone cannot. The young ones watch closely, copying every step, every mistake, because this is how knowledge travels before words exist. Lucy observes them calmly, aware that each clumsy attempt is practice for a future she will never see. When the grass moves strangely or the air grows quiet, the group pauses together. Stillness can be as powerful as motion. With hands now free, she carries food across the land, turning movement itself into an advantage. Rest is brief and cautious. The world rewards awareness, not comfort. As the sun lowers, their silhouettes stretch across the plains, upright figures against an ancient sky. And so they walk forward, not knowing they are ancestors, only knowing that tomorrow requires movement, learning, and survival. Where Lucy walked, Homo habilis begins to build. Not houses or cities, not yet, but ideas. Small ones. Ideas made of stone. It starts the way most revolutions do, by accident. A dropped rock, a broken edge, a spark in the mind where no spark had existed before. And suddenly, the world is different. Food is easier. Bones surrender marrow. Plants give up their roots more willingly. A stone is no longer a stone, it is a key. And among them, a female stands out, broad-shouldered, confident, using her tools with practiced hands. She works not for glory, but for survival. Roots taste better cracked open. Bones are worth the struggle now that marrow can be reached. The land offers more to those who know how to ask. In a brain only slightly larger than Lucy's, something flickers. Memory, planning, a whisper of tomorrow. The world has predators, yes, but curiosity becomes its own kind of weapon. The one who learns first lives longer. They do not build homes, but they choose better places to sleep. Under stone overhangs, near trees that watch like guardians. They do not control fire, not now, not yet, but they fear it less. They watch lightning strike and wonder what it would be like to hold the sun. Evolution is not loud. It does not announce itself. It whispers. It nudges. It changes one generation at a time. They do not know it, but every chipped stone points forward, to villages, to tools of metal, to cities, to satellites, to us. Where Homo habilis chipped stones, Homo erectus takes a step further, not just surviving the land, but exploring it. The world suddenly feels bigger, and someone decides to go see what's on the other side of the hill. They walk with purpose now, spine straighter, legs longer, eyes sharper. Moving forward is no longer escape, it's curiosity. There is no language like ours, not yet. But there is communication, gestures, sounds, glances. And then there is fire, not made yet, but kept. It came directly from lightning. Cooked food changes bodies. It softens diets, strengthens bones, and feeds the brain. They cross rivers. They climb ridges. They enter places the earth has not yet named. Every step writes the first pages of human geography. Families form, patterns emerge. Not villages, not yet, but places they return to. Homes made of familiarity, not walls. The world does not welcome them, but it does not stop them. Progress is stubborn. And from their footsteps, the world opens. Every future human will follow, some willingly, some accidentally, some chasing dreams they never learned to name. The world grew colder, harsher. Forests thinned, winds cut like knives, and survival no longer belonged to the fastest, it belonged to the planners. These are the Heidelbergensis, the first humans to think like hunters, not prey. They stood taller than those before them, their bodies built for endurance. Eyes sharp, chests wide, hands gripping spears not out of curiosity, but purpose. They were the first to map the land in their minds, to see the world not just as it was, but as what it could be. A territory, a hunt, and a future. Hunting was no longer chaos, it was choreography. One distracts, one drives, one waits. Evolution was learning teamwork. They began shaping the world with tools, not crude shards, but long spears hardened by fire. Fire was no longer an accident, it was a weapon. Their footsteps carry us forward, toward colder lands, toward stronger bodies, toward new humans waiting in the ice. Here comes the Neanderthal. They existed approximately 200,000 years ago. The cold did not frighten them. It shaped them. Neanderthals were built for the ice, wide chests, powerful arms, and minds sharpened by environments that offered no mercy. Hunting here required more than bravery. It required timing, patience, and an understanding of terrain like a map written on the bones. Sometimes, the cold demanded new tactics, like driving prey into deep snow, where heavy bodies struggled to run. They cared for their injured. Bones show healing, meaning someone stayed behind, hunted less, and chose compassion over convenience. They tanned hides, stitched clothing, and shaped the first proto-shelters. Not homes yet, but promises of homes. They knew the land well enough to borrow from it, but not so arrogantly that they believed they controlled it. Neanderthals were not the wrong answer. They were a different answer. And beyond the next ridge, a new kind of human was walking. Taller, leaner, curious in a different way. The sun rose over the dry plains of East Africa, spilling gold across a world preparing to change forever. A new kind of human was awakening. From a distance, they resembled those who came before them, but their eyes held imagination, a mind capable of dreaming what had never been. Hunger taught them what roots to dig and what fruit to trust. They gathered from trees, testing flavor and scent, passing wisdom from one to another. Survival became a science of taste, smell, and memory. Their voices carried sound, but more than that, they carried stories, warnings, dreams, and hope. They were not the strongest beings on the planet, but their minds made them unstoppable. They could imagine futures that did not exist yet. They planned hunts before prey appeared. They dreamed before they acted. They painted worlds they had never seen, beasts of memory, spirits of belief, ancestors of dreams. At night, they gathered around fire, the first classroom in human history, where wisdom passed like flame from one mind to another. These stories became maps for survival. Lessons were not lost. They were spoken and remembered. Knowledge no longer died with the body. It lived in memory, language, and myth. From these fires came the first sparks of culture, shared identity carried by belief, ritual, and voice. Cave walls became the first libraries, where moments of life were preserved in paint and symbol. They planned journeys the world had never seen, across deserts, forests, and coasts, guided only by courage and story. The universe of humanity began with a story whispered by firelight. From imagination came civilization.